Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to Sanhedrin daf Chav Daled. We are going to begin on Chav Daled with Aleph, about 10 lines from the top of the word Guf. We're getting back to what we said before. Amr Shlakish, Pek Kadesh Yomi Davazeh, a very holy person said this statement, and Rashi says Derech Hanava Pek Kadesh. This is a way of humility. So he said as follows: Tani a doi. You should read one witness. So this is going back to what we saw in yesterday's daf. We talking about with two witnesses, or with one witness. Any v'yimru ula haroyes reish lakish beis medrash. We saw the reish lakish in the beis medrash. Ki'il oiker harim. It's like mountains were uprooted. V'tachni, and they were ground up together. Zeh b'zeh, one to another. So we see how great Reish Lakish is. Says Rashi, he was extremely sharp. So I'm Ravina v'loy kol haroi Rameir b'beis medrash ki'u oiker hari harim v'teichnen b'zeh b'zeh. So with regard to this relationship between Reish Lakish and Rameir, so Rameir was so great that he was able to uproot mountains and grind them together. Says Rashi, Umay Tamel, what is the question? Will Rameir Oiker Hari Harim Hu? Kaloimar Olam Begover Tfei Tuva. He was even greater. Hachakamer. Borei Kama Mechaven Zebazeh. Zeh. Let's see how much they care for another. Says Rashi, Kloimer, Lo Tamoihi Kamat me. I'm not saying it as a bewilderment statement. El Hachkamer, Borei Kama B'nei Eretz Yisrael Mechaven Zeh. How much do people in Eretz Yisrael love one another? Reish Lakish Charef Chacham Tuva. Reish Lakish was very smart. Havivahari Karlu Rab Meir Peg Kadosh. He called him a Peg Kadosh. To come Mechaven Blei Umiyashiv Esadavar Liskayim. So he showed great levels of respect for his colleagues. Kihadi Yosef Rabbi V'Kaimer, when Rabbi was sitting, he said, "Also lahatmin at signing." He said that a person is not allowed to do hatman on Shabbos, to even take something which is cold. Says Rashi, "Mayim signing, cold water, and to insulate it." Umisara says Rashi, "Shel yichumu," we're considering it may get warmed up. Also latminan b'choil signing l'tzarek b'Shabbos. You can't put into sand something which is a moisiv hevel, something which could add heat. So Amar Lafana Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi Abba Hiter L'Hatminis Atzainin. What do you mean? I know that Abba mattered a person do Hatmana on Shabbos with cold water. Malay Kfar Horizakin. If that's what we say, Rabbi Yosi said this, and we go after him. Says Rashi, Rabbi Yosi Dazlin Basrei, fine. Amar Pabobar Kama Mechavin Zed said, let's see how much they care for another. The Il Rabbi Yosi Kayim Hayakov of Yoshlifnei Rebbe, that when the Rabbi Yosi was alive, he used to bend and sit in front of Rebbe. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi Mamali Makam Avos of Havi. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi was Mali Makim of his fathers. Hayakov of Yoshlifnei Rebbe, and he used to again show his respect to Rebbe. For Amar and Rebbe said Kfar Hayra Zakin. So said the Zakin, Rav Yosi. So it's interesting that Rav Yosi showed great respect to Rebbe because he was kaifef to him. But yet, when Rebbe spoke about Rav Yosi, he also spoke with great respect, and he called him the Zakin. What does the pasuk in Zechariah mean when it says, I'll take these two sticks, one will be called good, one will be called like an attacker. So Noyam El Talmud Chacham Eretz Yisrael. That's referring to the scholars in Eretz Yisrael. Shema Nimen Zel Halacha, that they are kind toward one another when it comes to halacha, and they're nice to one another, and they build each other up. Chayvlin, when it comes to the attackers, they attack each other in halacha. V'yomer elai elu shnei b'nei hayitzar ha'oimdim b'gomer. These, and furthermore it says in Zechariah, these are the two containers of oil that are standing. Ushnayim zeisim alehan, 2 olive trees upon it. Yitzhar. So when you're talking about the oil, I'm a Rabbi Yitzhak, Elu Talmid Chacham Sheretz Yisrael, Shenechan Zel Zeh B'Halacha, because Shem and Zayas, that they're comparable to olive oil in the way that they help one another and they give light to one another. Vishnayim Zeisim Lehan, these 2 olive trees above it, Elu Talmid Chacham Sheretz Shemayrin Zel Zeh B'Halacha, Kazayas, just like the bitter leaves of an olive tree, so too are the Talmid Chachamim in Bavel. Then the pasuk says there, "V'esoinai, I'll lift up my eyes, v'eran, I'll see, v'hine shtayim nashim, there's 2 women, yaitza is going out, ruach b'kanfeihem, and wind upon their wings, leheina kanafayim kikanfe hachasida, and their wings are like that of the chasida." So Rashi says, "Zu chanufa shemarin atzm chasidim." This is like flattery that they're considered like Hasidim. A Chassid is a Chasidim. A Chasida is typically referring to a stork, an ostrich. But Tesena ho'efa ben hashemayim ben haaretz, and there was this measurement between the heavens and the earth. V'yomer el hamalach hadaver bi, and we said to the angel that was speaking to me, Ana hema malicha says ho'efa. Where are they bringing this measurement? V'yomer elai livnoisla base bias be'eretz shinor. They're going to take this measure to be able to build a house. So it doesn't say. Rashi says v'loy ksiv lahem or lahen alma ha'achas levada nisiyashva sham. One of them answered the question. It says, even though there was more than one there, but nonetheless only one answered. This is referring to the chanufa and the gasas ruach that came down to Bavel. Vigasas ruach, fine, because we're talking about these 2 women. Vigasas ruach Bavel noches. The Gemara in Kedushin says famously, "Asar kabin gasas yodel olam tisha nata elam v'achas kolam kuloi." We don't see that it was taken from Bavel. It was this other place called Elam, and Rashi quotes. We'll see the pasuk in a second. In Bavel Nachas, it did go to Bavel initially. Yishtarvuvi yishtarvev le'elam, and then it ended up like getting to Elam. In the times of Daniel, Rashi quotes the pasuk in Daniel. Dechanam dechsiv livnois law bias be'eretz shinor. Only one stated this comment, but not both. Shema mina. So it's an element, I guess, of chutzpah, the fact that one spoke on behalf of the other. The Yermar similar gasas ruach anias, the anias lebavel nachas. A sign of gasas ruach is poverty, and poverty was in Bavel. So again, maybe we're talking about Bavel. So my anias Torah. When it says over there anias, it's talking about a lack of Torah. Dechsev achis lanu katana. We have a katana. We have a small girl. Shidayim ein lo, and she's not mature physically. They only learned, they didn't teach Torah. My Bavel, so Rav Yochanan, the word Bavel means Balula b'mikra, Balula b'mishnah, Balula b'talmud, which could mean that they have this mixture of Chumash and Mishnah and Gemara, which is brought down also in the Taisus and Kedushin. By learning Gemara, even though you're supposed to really balance your Chumash and your Mishnah and Gemara, but Talmud Bavli has this combination, so it's Balula. Alternatively, maybe it means that they Pasha just didn't have the ability to learn. It wasn't Borer, it wasn't clear to them. It was very unfamiliar. And then the pasuk says, B'machshechim, in the darkness, hoishiveni kimsi oilam. They put me like the Mesi oilam. Zed Talmuda shel Bavel. This is referring to the learning of Bavel. Said Rashi, Shein Noichen Zayim Zeh v'Talmudim Safek Biyadam. And it was a suffix. They didn't understand the learning so well because of that. When you look at the top Taisus, Belula, B'Mikra Mishnah, Perish Rabbeinu Tam, the Talmud Shalanu, Anu Paitrim Atzmeinu B'Mashnem Shamru Chachamim. That's what I quoted before. Quoting, it says on Ayin Gimel, okay, so Oilim Yishal Shadam Shanaisev Shish Mikra Shish Mishnah Shish B'Shas. You should learn Gemara, Mishnah, and Chumash. Avol Pikin Anu Karim B'Chol Yoyim Parshas. So the truth is, that's the reason why we have Bavli, because it's this mixture of everything. You have, as we just saw in this daf, we're going to see a Mishnah, we learn Gemara, we have a bunch of Psukim, so it's all mixed together. Avol Pikin Anu Karim B'Chol Yoyim Parshas Atamid V'Shen Mishnah Seizim in Kaimin V'Garsin Rabbi Shmuel V'Shal Shasher Midai Suchul. So as part of our davening, we do incorporate. We do this by Berachas HaTorah. Also, we say a pasuk we learn a piece of Mishnah, right? We say El Devarim Shalem Shir, and then we also quote a piece of Gemara. But there's also other elements as part of the Karbanos X section before Pesukah de Zimra, in which is specifically so that we have learning, so we have a combination. But the idea behind this is about balance, that every aspect of your life is supposed to have balance, not just between physical and spiritual, not to let one thing go, but also in your learning itself. It shouldn't be so concentrated on one area, but you should have more of an understanding of everything, which is very clear. That's what a person's supposed to do. Okay. All right. Let's continue with the next Mishnah. It says Mastisen. Armelo Neman olai Abba, Neman olai Avicha, Nemanim olai Shloishroi Bakar. So we had this before. So Rashi says Leo's Dayan. So the two parties say, I know that typically these people should not be chosen as judges. Because, for example, your father is puzzled from the Torah, but nonetheless, okay, I agree to it. I agree that your father could be a Dayan. I agree that these shepherds who are not really so knowledgeable in all the dinim, that they should be able to judge. Once you agreed to it, can you retract? So that's a machlokas. And then the Mishnah says, let's say a person is chayv to make a shmua, Yermulo dorli b'chai roishcha. So swear to me by the life of your head, which what that actually means. And Rashi doesn't say this here, what exactly that's referring to, but that's referring to a common oath, as we'll see, as opposed to making a shvuah holding on to a Sefer Torah or shvuah with Hashem's name. So apparently what the Mishnah means up until this point is, can you be Yachal Lachsabay, as Rashi says, Lisha Shvu Gemura. Even though he agreed originally that you could just do a common oath, the din is that you could always retract, say, no, I changed my mind. I want you to actually make a proper oath. Says the Gemara. Amr Avdimi Bereid Rav Nachman Bereid Rav Yosef Kagayin Tekabel Leha B'chad. We're talking about where one party accepted this judge, that we accepted this one judge. Even though there's two other judges with him, says Rashi, basically, even though it's not that all three of them are apostle, but one of them is, and that would also constitute this machlokas that even here Rameir says you can retract. The whole machlokas is referring to machaloch. Says Rashi, Itoiveya Oimer Lenitva. So what Moichalach is that let's say we're talking about a loan. The Malva, the lender, says to the Loive, Nemanolai Abba Ovicha. I trust your father, Im Yischucha. If you win, Im Mochalach, then I forgive you, right? You owe me money, really, but I'll let your father the borrower's father could be, no problem, your father could be a judge. And if it turns out that I don't have to pay you, okay, so I don't have to pay you. In that situation, the Rabbanan say you can't retract. So we say that you are zoicha, whatever happens and whatever it is, right? So you basically agree to it, and therefore you can't retract because you understand that whatever happens is accepted. That's only when the that's the machlokas. When the Malva says it. However, if the case where the Lova agreed in this situation, the nitva oimer l'toiveya, says Rashi, im yechavuni o avicha o etin loch, if I lose, I'll pay you. So now everyone says that you could retract. Why? Says Rashi, hoyel v'mamen biyadai, because right now this loiva has the money, and we want to take money out of his hands. We can only take money out from someone's hand with dayanim ksherim, and therefore that's what's necessary. No, actually the machlokas is be'etin l'cha. He doesn't really explain, but he says that even when it comes to the case, or I shouldn't say that, in the case of etin l'cha, where the loiva agrees that I'll pay you, that's where there's machlokas, not that you can retract. Are you telling me the whole machlokas only when it comes to the lova? Because the lova typically you'd have to give up money, which is a bigger chiddush. So there's the machlokas. However, when it comes to the malva, so everyone holds he can't retract because all he's doing is not taking anything. So what does he hold? So Tashma. Rava says machlokas be'etin loch. The whole machlokas be'etin loch. However, when it comes to the malva saying a meichel, he can't retract. So Rabbi Diamar Rabbi Yochanan. So if that's the case, he's saying the same thing. If you hold that there's a machlokas by both, then who does he hold like? So Rabbi Taima Denashi Kaimer. No, he just maybe has a different opinion. So a person is chayiv his friend to make a shvua. He says, you know what? Just do a common shvua. Which is basically a quote from our Mishnah, whether or not he's able to retract. So my love, is it not, as we continue to Chav Dalet and Beis, we're talking about those people who make a shvua, and therefore by making a shvua, which is typical, you make a shvua and you don't have to pay. And therefore maybe that's the case, that's comparable to the case of a malva saying, if your dad is a judge, it's okay, and if it turns out that you, the borrower, wins, then that's it, I'm moichel, you don't have to pay me anything. So what do we see? Apparently the machlokus is in the case of mochalach. There are times where we don't make the person make a shvua and not pay. Sometimes, for example, what's his choshid al shvua, he'd be apostle for whatever, as we're going to see in the next Mishnah. So then in that situation, we make the other person make the shvua and collect, which is what we normally don't do, but under other circumstances, that's what we do. But we already learned this before. So Tana Toya Badas Acherim, Tana Toya Badas Atzmai. Says Rashi. One is Das Acherim, the Abba of Avicha, and the other is Das Atzmo, Shel Chavero Baldin. Okay. Utsricha. Tana Toya Badas Acherim, if you trust the father, your father, Bahakim Rameir. Maybe only there does Rameir say the Matzi Hadar Bey that you can retract. Mishlam Dulul Gamra Makni, because there was no actual belief and acquisition. Because I said maybe he'll let the other party win, and therefore that's the reason why Rameir says I could retract. He's going to let the other party win. Where he will certainly swear and pater himself. So maybe he will agree to the Rabbanon. V'yashmina b'hakem Rabbanon when it comes to das atzmai. Okay. Omer Reish Lakish. Let's actually look at question 6. Omer loy nemon alai abba hayachai lo shua malay dorli. Rabbi di'amer be'etan l'cha machlokes. The machlokes is that even when the loiva will give you money, right? I'll fine if I lose. The loiva will give you money. My itzrach misni plukta betarti gam nemon alai abba v'gam bedorli. What's the difference? One is me having to give money as the loiva, and the other case is the person makes a shul like that. So he says like this. We saw this. Tana Reisha the Toiladat Badas Acherim, that you trust other people, that based on the Abba Vicha you'll end up paying. The Tana Sefer the Toiladat Badas Atzmai, the person will make a shvua and make me have to pay, right? So that's the whole thing, in which you would certainly know that this person who is going to make a shvua and make me pay is going to end up doing it. Okay. Omer Reish Lakish Machlokes with Nigmar Din. This whole Machlokes of retracting is only before Gemar Din. Gemar Din, once a verdict has been reached, once they've already reached a verdict, you can't change your mind. Oh, I don't want this judge anymore. No, it's too late. Again, before, then certainly everyone should hold you could retract. If you accept a apostle, let's say a father or whatever, before Gemar Din, it says Beferish you could retract. Afterwards, it says Beferish you can't. Now, if you want to tell me that Achar Gemar Din is Machlokes, before you could, so Rabbi Yochanan, so he's saying like the same sheet as Rabbi Yochanan. But if you tell me Ben Bezu Ben Machlokes, Rabbi never come on. So we end up establishing over here that according to him, according to the shita of Rabbi Yochanan, when he says his statement, Rabbi Yochanan Omer la'achar Gemar Din machlokes, right? We see la'achar Gemar Din machlokes shema mina. That's davka afterwards and not before. Shalch le Rav Nachman bar Rav Chistel Rav Nachman bar Yaakov Yom Adin Rabbeinu lifnei Gemar Din machlokes. That before Gemar Din is actually machlokes, or la'achar Gemar Din machlokes, or is it after Gemar Din is machlokes? The halacha kedivri mi. Who's the halacha like? So when can you? What, is the machlokes before Gemar Din or after Gemar Din? So sholchlei la'achar Gemar Din machlokes. After the Gemar Din, there's actually still an opinion that says you could retract. However, not before. Before Gemar Din, everyone holds you could retract. Well, halacha kedivri chachamim. Halacha is in fact like the shita of the chachamim. Rav Ashi Omer, which again is based on our Mishnah, right? It's a machlokes in our Mishnah, and when the chachamim say in yochel achsabai. So when is it in yochel achsabai? So halacha is that that the machlokes is lachar Gemar Din. Before Gemar Din, everyone holds you can retract. But after Gemar Din, we hold like the chachamim, you can no longer retract. Okay. Rav Ashi Omer, hachi sholach le be'etin l'cha machlokes or b'mochel l'cha machlokes. What is the machlokes? Is it by the Loveg agreeing, saying, okay, fine, you could have your father as a judge, and if I lose, I'll pay you? Or is the machlokes, and therefore, certainly, maybe you could say certainly when it comes to the Malva, when all he's doing is saying, fine, I just won't collect, I'll be Michael. So the halacha could be me. So sholchli be'etel machlokes. The whole machlokes is when it comes to the loiva, right? But when it comes to the Malva, so the Malva certainly is, it will say, he can't retract. However, there is a machlokes, and again, halachas that you can retract. The lulva can retract. Basur masti hachi, but banusa masti hachi. Yom Rav Chanina bar Shalom, Yom Shalach Aleim Mebeir Rav L'Shmuel. Lamatenu Rabbeinu Lefnei Gemar Din. When it comes to before Gemar Din, v'kanami yadomai, and they made a kinyan. Says Rashi, mitchila shlo yakser. They originally made a kinyan that they were not going to retract. So shalcha einu acher kinyan klum. You can't do anything after a kinyan. That's it. Once you make a kinyan, that's it. Even if it's lifnei gemar din. So even those that interpret that really lifnei gemar din you could retract, that's only if there was no kinyan made. Once there's a kinyan, that's it. So we're going to stop there. Let's look at question 7. Kibul of hanitva karovo iposel im yochel asabo lapsak halacha the Gemara. So, are they able to retract? So, koidim gemar din yochel asabo, as we said. Of course, without a kinyan. If there was a kinyan, then you can't. However, if it's akar din in yochel asabo, because we hold like the chachamim. Question TA 3. Nevertheless, Abu Rameir yochel asabo be'elu gimel fanim moed Rameir dein yochel asabo. Where do we find 3 different? This is a hard question. 3 different circumstances where, even though Rameir holds that you could retract, there's 3 times he'll say you can't retract. Okay, so one of them is b'machalach. Maybe it's only be'etin lach, but not by. Maybe b'machalach is etin lach is a machalach. B'machalach everyone holds you can't. Or maybe it's lachar gemar din, or it's before gemar din. It's kana miyadai. Okay, that was a hard question. Great question though. Question TB3. Armali nemanal ayaba hayachav lo shva v'yemali darli lo rava di'emer be'etin lacha machlaikis. Etin lacha is the love saying this to the malva, right, to pay, right? So, amai isra chalmiste pukta betarti. So I wrote, echad betoila, should be a test, al atzmai, al das atzmai, echad hu toila al acherim, hakol yoidim shehu roitzel l'shaval v'liftor, mipnei shezu l'ein inomenu shavim. Or he could make a shvuah and collect, is what I think it really should say here, right? So it says, V'yashmin b'ha b'hakayim rabbanan. Let me read this again. Avol toyel b'das atzmo emer moidele rabbanan. Right? Because in that situation, certainly he's going to make a shvuah, and he'll end up collecting, right? Devadi neder haya kedei. Oh, actually, we are talking about the loiva. He definitely would make a neder v'lifter v'yoda umachol. So he knows he's going to be doing this. Okay, that's a correct answer. Adkan.